Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Hill of Roses, where we come once again to celebrate the best contributors to our independent policy movement for progress to bring power to the people. With me today, I have on Angela Walker, the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party. Angela, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. And happy Juneteenth to everybody listening.
Yes, I'm going to be looking forward for us to be able to cover that at the end. I leave the best for last because I think that's one of our most important topics because it's so relevant to today. But before we get into that, I'd love to just cover some basis of, many people out there at this current moment are dealing with a two-party system. At least that's what they've been told. But you yourself are clearly running because there's more than just two parties. And so I wanted to ask you first and foremost, what made you decide to become a Green Party member, and when did you join the Green Party?
I joined the Green Party very recently. I was a member of the Socialist Party of the USA before, and I'm also a dual member of the SP now with the Green Party. And I have been, as I was telling you before we started, I've been on panels with Howie Hawkins. I've been on panels with Jill Stein. I know what the Green Party's principles are, and being a socialist, I felt like there was a natural synergy between the two. And years ago, we talked about building, as part of a greater left unity, building out a red-green alliance. And so I'm really kind of happy and really excited to be, we're actually embodying that. So it's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, I certainly can understand that dynamic. I think when you're dealing with some third parties, you're going to need to have as much unity as possible when you're fighting against this kind of two-party system. And so I wanted to ask you, I think there's some misconceptions around the idea of voting for an alternative. Why do you think is the best case to be able to leave this two-party system and be able to join the Green Party? What are some of those core tenets that the Green Party stands for that if other people relate to, they should consider joining?
I mean, grassroots democracy is one of those core tenets. The right of living things on the earth. I mean, I think that's my biggest draw to the Green Party. That the thing that I really, really appreciate is the ecological piece, the thing that they're most known for. And also hooked to that, peace issues. That if we are not involved in endless wars, we are not, participating in the extraction of natural resources and basically plundering our planet, what can we accomplish as far as, resourcing human life, respecting non-human life, and respecting the planet that we live on? Those things are like core for me as a person. And so it was, like I said, it was a natural synergy between being a socialist, believing in what is good for people, and also being someone who believes in what's good for the planet. And the Green Party marries both of those two things together.
So I'd love to know, Howie being your running mate at the top of the ticket, what do you think he's bringing forward to be able to handle those biggest dynamics, to be able to bolster grassroots democracy, as well as being able to help the planet, or other issues that you think are some of the underrated qualities of his platform existingly?
I've been telling people, and it is the absolute truth, I support everything in this platform with my whole heart. I mean, one of the things about Howie Hawkins, he's a very modest, very non-assuming person, but he's also one of the smartest people I have ever met. Yeah. And so when you're talking about policy, I mean, we're talking about the original Green New Dealer. So, I mean, this is someone who can, explain peace policies in detail, explain ecological policies, and like breaking it down to, under a green eco-socialist system of green manufacturing, how these things, how this works. It's amazing. And so I think that he should be someone that people pay attention to, because I think as a culture, we get bogged down in like this idea of the charismatic leader. Where's it gotten us? I mean, we have a whole, I'm just going to say, we have a whole pandemic happening. We have economic depression happening. We have continuing racial violence against Black people in this country happening. Charisma's not leading. I need a leader with a plan and some intelligence. It's that simple. And Howie, like I said, is modest and non-assuming, but this cat is smart. And as far as having a plan, it's all laid out in our party platform and also in our campaign platform in detail. Pretty amazing.
So I wanted to ask, clearly the assertion is Howie is the smart candidate in the field. So you clearly think the other candidates aren't bringing it in that regard. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on some of the other party candidates and where you think that they fall short, where Howie and your whole team here are going to be able to far surpass them in terms of leadership if you were to be elected. What are your thoughts on the current incumbent in office, Donald Trump?
I'm giving you my most diplomatic answer.
Yeah, okay.
Charisma doesn't lead. Intelligence, compassion, solid plan, someone who has an understanding of what is good for people and what is good for the planet, those things lead. Charisma doesn't lead. Rhetoric doesn't lead. And that's where I'm going to leave that.
That is the most diplomatic answer I've ever heard. So you are absolutely correct on that point. Okay, let's turn to the second one. Joe Biden. How do you feel about Joe? Currently, most people view him as the best way to be able to remove Donald Trump from office, at least in their current conception of the two-party system, being the Democrat. Why do you think most Democrats, which I think generally are more to the left than the other parties, why do you think they should be joining the Green Party instead of supporting Joe?
For the simple fact that if you are someone who wants Medicare for all, which so many people have, and I mean, people are constantly, continually pushing this idea, if you want more than topical reforms of police systems around this country, more than lip service, you're not going to get more than those things with Mr. Biden. I'm sorry. And these things are actually key parts of our platform. And so for me, it just follows that if this is something that you absolutely believe needs to happen, rather than using your energy to sway the person that you're holding your nose to vote for and hope that he'll listen to you, go for what you really want.
So I have to ask, as a follow-up on Medicare for All, I do think that is a good platform idea. But, let's say you were to be elected as a ticket. How do you think you could be able to drive change from the top of the ticket when right now, as we've seen it, if we're looking at Bernie's bill of Medicare for All, as well as the companion bill from Pramila Jayapal in the House, they're currently missing around 100 members in terms of co-sponsors to pass it in the House and 46 members in the Senate. What would be your strategy for trying to actually further the cause of Medicare for All if elected?
And see, that's a Howie question. Because he's the one that can, he breaks down, the just transition. And also, my short answer with working with, because we've been asked about how would you work with, with the platform and what you're representing, what you're coming into as far as the folks that are already in office, in Congress and whatnot. How would you work with them? Diplomacy. Diplomacy. And also in the case of something like Medicare for All, this is what your constituents are asking for. Even I think, I don't deal much in conservative circles, but I would imagine from things that I am hearing that Medicare, rising medical costs and things like that are also an issue. So I would say that this is a bipartisan issue. And I don't think I would be off base saying that. And so, this is something across the board. And as far as working with, more conservative people who are currently holding office, as well as more liberal-minded people, diplomacy, tact, and also reminding them this is what your constituents are asking for. This is not something we pulled out of the air. This is what people on the ground are saying.
Yeah, and I do think there's going to be a huge signal simply from winning that it's okay, the people demanded this. I think we got to get in line here to be able to support that cause. So you're right. The people right now are behind this platform idea, both left.
Very much so.
It's more so those in DC that are kind of halting this progress. So I do think that would be a big signal for people if the Green Party were the people to be able to win the ticket, to say, yeah, we're tired of this. We want Medicare for All as well as the rest of the platform you're fighting for.
I get so giddy thinking about it.
So the last candidate I wanted to ask you about, and I'm not sure if you know it because frankly, they just nominated them. Joe Jorgensen had gotten the nomination for the Libertarian Party.
Yes.
I think a lot of people who kind of are tired of the two-party system are kind of going back and forth of which of the two different parties they want to push forward as that main
Yes.
third party. What do you think is the appeal that the Green Party has the better chance, like strategically, for those that might say, you know, I want to invest in the future and building a party up? Why is the Green Party the party that can have that future to be more of a main contender?
I don't know very much about Joe Jorgensen. I do know who you're referencing. And as far as, you know, what would attract people to our party versus maybe another party, for the simple fact of we cover a lot of ground and there's a lot of space here. I mean, you're talking about issues for folks on the LGBTQIA rainbow. There's things in our party platform and also in our campaign platform that are specific to people in these communities. We also understand intersections. And so that, you know, you're not siloing someone's socioeconomic class and then their race, their gender, their age, their, you know, a bit physical ability or disability. All of those things come in the room with people. And I think that intersectionality is one thing that the Green Party has working in its favor, is that for the most part, we understand that. I mean, it's not utopia, of course. Show me a party that is. But as far as, you know, I'm not going to sit and be like, oh, yeah, it's great. We're not sparkles, rainbows, and unicorns like anybody else. It doesn't work like that. But as far as understanding that, you know, when we're talking and advocating for the uplift of humankind and also, you know, the uplift and the health of the planet, we have to be respectful of all of the differences and things that people bring into the work with them. And that, you know, all of these different intersections that we're fighting for. And I think we do that.
Wonderful. So now we've covered across the board. I want to look forward a little bit. You know, we have, what's it now? 5 months until we get into election time, maybe a little bit less because we're a little bit through June. But I wanted to hear, what is the strategy that the Green Party is going to be embracing to try and lift this ticket up, as well as, you know, build the party going forward? What are the ways you guys have been organizing to try and recruit more membership?
Get into the communities, talk to people. Good old fashioned organizing. And it's one thing that my campaign manager loves to say, and one thing that Howie loves to say, is that we're training Greens to be organizers. That is great to have this, you know, idea of, you know, this is what we do, but you have to get it into people's hands. And we've got a lot of very young members who are doing just that. And so, you know, it's a model that I'm used to. I used to do labor organizing and things like that. Talk to people, build relationships with people, get into the communities and find out who is already in that community doing the work and how can we be helpful. Because one thing you don't ever do is come into someone's house and tell them how you're going to do or what you're going to do. It doesn't work like that. How can we be helpful with efforts that are already existing? How can we lift up the work and the organizers doing that work? And you know, how do we attract people? You know, you attract people to the party by what they see you do. Do you show up? Do you do the work? Are you a person of your word? And those things make people look fair. Oh yeah, the Greens, we know them. We're good with them. They're good people. And you know, when you're thinking about maybe joining a party, then hey, these are the people that show up. I should check them out.
I think that makes a lot of sense on an organizing level. I'd love to pick your brain on, you know, I think there are also some institutional challenges to being able to build up third parties existingly within the system. I'd love to hear some of your ideas, as we had a whole long marathon this past Sunday, speaking with 16 congressional candidates about how we make government more representative, more efficient, and more trustworthy. What do you think are some of those democratic reforms that can make it more possible for third parties, or even more than three parties? Like, imagine that world where we get multiple parties in the system. How do you think we can get a system like that more unlocked?
People at first have to be open to it. I think that there's a lot of justifiable fear of the unknown operating in this country. And I mean, what you were saying, you think about the fact that multiple parties are pretty much the thing in other countries. This is not something that is unusual around the
Kind of
world.
a
It's just
radical idea.
unusual to us. You know, people are looking at us like, oh, y'all still doing that two-party thing? That's, oh, enjoy that.
And even our
But
founders warned us about that. Like, we just didn't listen there.
basically, I mean, it's like, you know, there's room. And I think that the big thing, first off, is that people are open to it. And I think that in this year of pandemic, in this year of rebellion, I think I've heard socialism come out of folks' mouths where I have never heard it before. And so I think people now are more open to that idea. And I think we just need to keep pushing it. And also, people need to see, I think, that it can be done, that it can be done here. You know, I think we get into this mindset, like you and I were just talking about, that, oh, yeah, they may do that over there, but that's not how we do it here. Well, I think we need to be open and we need to be flexible to that. And you know what? Why not?
Yeah, just like
And getting
universal
in.
health care.
Yeah,
Everyone
thank
else is
you.
doing it, but we're not doing it yet.
To great success. I mean, is anybody's system absolutely perfect? Of course not. But I think the basic concept that you should not have to choose between the medicine that will keep you alive and your rent makes sense. You know, that shouldn't be happening. It's 2020. We don't do this anymore. But I think that people just have to be open to the idea. I think ranked choice voting is something that people need to be learning about and getting interested in, and just seeing it as a possibility. I call this the year of impossible things. So why don't we entertain the impossible idea of more than two parties?
I hope that's true. If we get all these impossibilities and we break the mold like that, that would be a big step forward. The last question I want to personally ask you before I go to just a couple of questions from the audience is today is Juneteenth, as you mentioned beforehand. And so I wanted to hear from you, A, how we could be best celebrating this going forward, if you believe it should be a national holiday, and if so, how do you celebrate the holiday? And B, what do you think Black Americans in general need that the political system is currently not delivering?
Well, first off, to your first question, for folks who don't know what Juneteenth is, just the short notes, June 19th, 1865, the last, and I encourage people to read up on it if they're not familiar, because I'm just giving you like the barest of overviews. But June 19th, 1865, the last enslaved people in Texas were informed that both the Civil War had been ended and so had slavery. And so for Black Americans, this is our Independence Day. And I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, originally, where we have celebrated Juneteenth I know it comes up when I say Wisconsin. Everybody does that. I can't hide it. But it's a big deal. Juneteenth is a big deal. I mean, this year's the face of it is a little bit different because of COVID, but you know, it's always been a major celebration. And so, you know, just thinking about Black American, you know, celebrating Black American freedom, and also taking the time as a community for us to contemplate what exactly does it even mean to be free, and are we free actually? So, you know, it's a day of celebration for us, but it's also a day of reflection, and especially, you know, dealing with ongoing state violence.
So, you know, I wanted to just do the second part of the question now, which is, you know, I think you were touching on this a bit, the idea of independence and what that really looks like. But, you know, what are some of the issues that you think the government has failed currently to be able to address for Black Americans in general?
Where do you want me to start? How much time do you have?
Give me the quick hitters and let's get to the biggest thing.
How much time do you have? I'll give you the most timely one, the one that's on everybody's lips right now. Community control of the police, among other things.
Yeah.
And everything that comes with that, you know, ending qualified immunity, making sure that communities are not being preyed on by law enforcement. But I mean, this is all a symptom of a much larger thing. A lot of people are buying into this idea of, oh, there's just a few bad apple cops. No, this is systemic, baby. It's not personal. This is systemic. And the mistreatment and abuse of Black communities and communities of color in this country is woven into the fabric of this country. And a lot of people are not ready to hear that, but it is what it is. So, and if it ruffles feathers, then it does. It is what it is. I didn't make it. But I think that one of the biggest ways that this country can start to make amends is by adopting a community control model. And that will vary from community to community. Of course, this is in our platform. And another piece of that is dealing with an economic bill of rights, which, when I ran for sheriff in Milwaukee County in 2014 against David Clark, my platform was, I know. He's such an interesting person. But our diplomatic. But our platform, the platform for my campaign was, if you are wanting to alleviate crime, let's look at poverty. Let's look at the things that how are we looking at crime? What are we calling crimes? If someone is stealing to eat, how much of a crime is that? Or is the crime that the fact that they don't have a living wage job? And so I think, coupled with community control of the police, we're also looking at economic measures that raise people out of poverty, give people a guaranteed wage, give people living wages for their work, making sure that we're not having anybody falling through the cracks, making sure that people are safely housed, making sure that, under Medicare for All, everyone has access to medical, with no questions, no giant bill at the end of your services, anything like that. And so, I think, in a nutshell, just being holistic and really reconsidering the way that we view people in this country.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think they have to go hand in hand, because you are right. It is clearly a systemic issue with the police, but frankly, a large reason these people generally get put into these positions where crime is a potential for them is an economic condition. I think even this national case that everyone's focused on in the George Floyd incident, he was accused and was being harangued for the fact that he had used a counterfeit $20 bill, apparently. That's at least what the accusation was. But if you had, a universal basic income, fair wages, guaranteed economic stability, like with universal basic services, yeah, are you going to be needing a counterfeit $20 bill if that is truly what the case was? No, probably not.
Even at the end of the day, because you can get a counterfeit bill and not even know you have it. At the end of the day, the issue with that situation is not whether he had a counterfeit. If people are more concerned about whether he had a counterfeit bill than the fact that this man had the life pushed out of him for 8.5 minutes, we need to talk. I'm not worried about that bill. No matter what he did or he didn't do, it should not have cost him his life.
100%.
And that is a systemic problem, that someone in law enforcement felt that they were empowered to do that, and none of those other 3 officers that were bystanders were able to intervene and tell him, yo, stop, let's not do this. No one did it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. So, Angela, thank you so much for answering my questions. I'd love to just turn to a couple of my audiences as we wrap up. So the first one comes from the Thorns and Roses podcast. He asks, for the people who don't love the term just socialism in general, how do you try to appeal to those types of people? Because, it's definitely a word that's gaining popularity among the younger generation, but it's a little bit of a buzzword that is a little Red Scare-esque for some of the older generation. Mm-hmm. How do you try and broach that gap for them?
People have been red baited for so long that, they hear socialism and they go, oh, no. I understand that. I talk about issues. I bring up issues. Like when you're talking about Medicare for all, or the idea that all people should have access to a living wage. All people should have access to free public education from K through college. Those are socialist concepts. but without the name. I'm the type of person that, hey, you're going to get this straight. 190 proof, it is what it is. But for people, when I'm just meeting them or just having the discussion with them, I bring up issues, how socialism works or how it looks, when it's implemented, as far as, free libraries, Medicare for all, public transportation that is, you're not having to pay for it, and, things are maintained, things like that. And then they warm to it, and I'm like, guess what you just had? Socialism. But I talk about issues.
Yeah, I do love that approach in general of making it issue focused. I just like to turn it to what we already got rather than what can be. Because, some people can disagree about what the future is and what the best plan forward is. But like, hey, look at what we already got today. We didn't have K through 12 for that long. It's only a 20th century concept that we've implemented. And you can go through this on other things. Like, frankly, this is going to come off a little controversial, but police is a socialized force. We've all agreed that power has been socialized into certain hands. Same goes with the military. Same goes with a lot of these things that are more conservative concepts that most people like glorify. So I think that's a big idea for us to have. In my idea, I like to turn to economics too, like things that are price inelastic, things that people are going to demand, whether or not the price rises. Those things need to come into the public hand and be secured.
Yes. And when you say that, people generally don't freak out,
Yeah, I think they get the idea of just like almost like the authoritarianism of like the USSR, like this picture in their head, which is
what we've been taught,
connected to reality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to our next question here. This comes from Heidi Briones. She asks, as a specific strategy for the Green Party, are you going to be looking to try and sway people who are in safe blue states? We do work within an electoral college system. So, I, being in New Jersey, frankly feel like I'm not going to get much say with my vote. It's often been a safe blue state for a very long time. And so I'm curious if you'll be specifically trying to recruit that or having a more like 50-state strategy.
My understanding is a 50-state strategy. There have been people who I've been in dialogues with that are like, I'm in a safe blue state. Of course I'm going green. I'm not risking anything. I live in South Carolina. We already know, without me having to say it, I'm voting green, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, are you going to try to sway people? I'm trying to sway people in all states to vote green. But at the end of the day, you're going to do, we're not going to come and beat people in the head and demand anything from them. But as far as a strategy, we have a 50-state strategy. We have a platform that we can stand on. We have candidates that you don't have to hold your nose to vote for, or like, weighing your principles and be like, how much can I, you don't have to do that. And so, I mean, I think that carries a lot of weight in a lot of places.
Yeah, I generally agree. I think, you're only going to have finite resources. So maybe there is some strategic targeting, but you should never eliminate potential like converts potentially to the party. Like that, you shouldn't put up those barriers and say, yeah, we don't care about you. We're only targeting these blue states. Because as we said, these ideas can sell anywhere potentially.
People are ready for them.
They are ready for them. Okay, let's go to our next question. This was a question, this came from Dario Hunter as a accusation. I believe it was during like the North Carolina primary.
I know exactly.
Any comments you'd like to issue about that?
We've made statements. There are 2 video statements that I know of that are responding to that have already responded to that.
Okay. Where can they check those out if they would like to see them?
That's on Twitter.
Okay.
That is on Twitter.
On Twitter, guys.
Howie Hawkins' 2020 campaign has put out 2 statements about that.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have any other questions here from the audience? No more questions. So I wanted to just wrap up and, frankly ask one final question. I think a lot of people want to know what the future is for the Green Party beyond the presidential ticket. Because I've heard a lot of year after year tickets coming along, and we get to focus on the Jill Steins of 2016 and now Howie Hawkins and yourself in 2020. But how do you move this like from just a focus on the top to going all the way down ballot?
just encouraging people to run. And we've got a lot of candidates around the country who are running, and supporting those candidates. And also, like I said, getting into communities and building relationships with people outside of an election. People should not see your party, and this is something, I've said for years. They shouldn't just see you when, okay, it's an election year. You know what? There's a whole pandemic happening. There's a lot of economic depression happening. One of the goals of our campaign is to help build a unified independent left, and working with folks across ideologies to make sure that our communities are taken care of, and that people are okay through everything that's happening. So just continuing the work that we've been doing, yay, election, but, encouraging people who have been considering running, if you are, Green Party, if you are whatever leftist stripe that you are. If this is something that you've been considering, something for you to think about. If it's something you want to do, you should do it. And just working to build a unified left, because our people are going to need us.
Yeah, in my opinion, I would say that it's frankly like more practical even to be able to start from the bottom on up and grow. Because, compared to having to sway a whole nation, which we can potentially be able to do. But when you're focusing on a local level, there's just less people you need to be able to meet and sway, and that can kind of build up over time. Rather than needing to convince millions, all you got to convince is maybe a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand who are actually voting. And so I think that's frankly, the way you can really have a lot of buildup of the Green Party is hyper focusing on the local level. Because there's a lot more races that can be won there. And then once you have the local support, that makes it so much easier. Once you have that local endorsements, now you get the congressional people who have a lot easier time winning. And then once you have that, it becomes way easier for the top of the ticket too. I think everything in this society needs to start trickling on up, from the economics to the government.
How long have we said that?
I know, right?
Maybe this will be the year that we actually see it happen.
So, Angela, this was a pleasure being able to talk with you today. I really appreciated getting your perspective, and I look forward to continuing a dialogue going forward. Is there anything that you want to let the folks out there that liked hearing what your perspective was today and want to potentially support the Green Party? How can they get involved and be able to support your cause?
Well, if y'all are interested, anybody that likes what they heard, if you're interested in supporting the party or learning about the party's principles or about our campaign platform, we are at howiehawkins.us. And the whole platform, then there's a bunch of different, under campaign updates, there's a lot of deeper dives into pieces of the platform. If you want to really explore some of the things, like the economic piece, the community control piece, things like that, where we stand on LGBTQIA issues, all of that stuff's in the campaign updates as well as in the campaign platform. And then go to the Green Party website and you'll see, what the party's platform, general party's platform is. And then you can, explore and see if those are things that you're interested, into it.
Okay. Well, Angela, thank you so much. Truly a lovely individual. I love this conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
The last thing I want to say, Rosebuds, is a little bit of a program update of what we have for the rest of the week. We're done with this week, but we come back again on Monday at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be talking then with a variety of new types of concepts. We want to go a little bit beyond just talking to the congressional candidates as we've been doing in the past. So we will start off with Shahid Buttar on Monday, primarying Nancy Pelosi in California's 12th district. But then we're going to be going and talking with the Wolf Pack. We're going to be talking with so many candidates next week. We have a really packed schedule. And then, frankly, we're going to be talking to some other former candidates as well. So I really look forward to that conversation with all of them. And Angela, once again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciated getting to hear your perspective. And everyone out there, I hope you have a great Juneteenth today. I hope you will actually reflect on what this holiday truly means and what it really means to just be free. And as always, I hope you're staying safe out there. There's a lot of craziness in the world. And as always, as you know, we want you to stay rosy out there. So have a great weekend, guys.